As of August 25th, 2020, I uploaded my review of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, finishing the 2-game single-player RPG series. But I knew my coverage wouldn't be truly complete until I tackled the sort of sequel MMO, Star Wars The Old Republic. It was released in December of 2011 with a budget of $200 million, and as a major World of Warcraft player at the time, I remember how big of a deal this game was at launch. With WoW being the largest and most influential massively multiplayer RPG on the market, every up-and-coming MMO was viewed through the lens of finally being the game to dethrone World of Warcraft and become the acclaimed WoW killer. Many would-be WoW killers rose and fell through the late 2000s and early 2010s, but the Old Republic stood a better chance than most. It had a large enough financial backing and large enough IP behind it that it reached nearly 2 million subscribers within the first few months of its launch, before slowly dropping in subscriber count for the rest of 2012. 2 million subscribers within a few months is a dramatic level of growth for a brand new MMO, though it pales in comparison to World of Warcraft's peak of 12 million paying subs. Years after launch, the Old Republic moved into a hybrid payment model, allowing players to have access to the game and a majority of its content for free, with a buy-up subscription option giving you access to all the expansions and some additional convenience features. Though the Old Republic may not have become the next big thing like EA and BioWare would have liked, it boasted healthy enough numbers to receive 7 full expansions post-launch and tons of smaller content patches even to this day. A summer 2020 re-release of the game on Steam has also injected some additional life into the game's player count. With the inevitable fate of all MMOs being the eventual shutting down of its servers when it ceases to be profitable, a healthy player base is good news for those out there who are still playing this game. Maybe the sunset of the Old Republic is a few years further away than I thought. Nearing a decade after its launch, Star Wars The Old Republic is a massive game. It's a game whose content was designed to be consumed over years, not weeks, so trying to know where to even begin making this video was a challenge. So, some ground rules before we start. I'm not exactly an MMO guy. My experience with the genre is mostly the decade plus of on and off play I've put into World of Warcraft, and all of the free-to-play MMOs I downloaded before I could talk my parents into paying for that WoW sub. And it's exactly for that reason that I can't offer the perspective of an MMO enthusiast when talking about Star Wars The Old Republic. I knew I needed to go into this video with a specific strategy. That strategy was to give The Old Republic 1 month of my time. I paid for its premium subscription during that period to ensure I received the best experience. I didn't have any direct in-game goals, I wasn't going to try to get to endgame, I wasn't going to try to hit max level or do any specific expansions. I just played casually for about an hour or so every night, sampling different aspects of the game. With 50 plus hours of gameplay behind me, I'm ready to talk about my month with Star Wars The Old Republic. If we want to get technical, my Old Republic journey actually lasted a bit more than 1 month, and that's thanks to these 4 books right here. The Old Republic isn't just a game, it's a multimedia franchise. There's also a comic series if you're so inclined, but I would highly recommend reading all of these books right here if you wanted a primer on the Old Republic setting. It's where I started, and they do an excellent job introducing the world and characters. Fatal Alliances, Deceived, and Annihilation all stand out as their own excellent pieces of Star Wars fiction that you can read with or without any interest in the games. Revan I found to be equally strong, but it's a bit more conditional. It serves as the connective tissue linking the events of these single-player RPGs to the MMO. Playing Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 is basically a requirement to understand what's going on with this one, and its cliffhanger ending pushes you into playing the MMO. But the upside to those conditions is that it's more directly relevant to some of the key plot points in the Old Republic. They all come with a big thumbs up from me, and its Annihilations and Deceived's extra emphasis on smuggler Han Solo type characters that drove a lot of my decision making when building my character. Upon booting up the Old Republic for the first time, I was met with a few choices. I ended up picking Starforge as my realm because why not, and then needed to make the choice between Republic and Empire. Wanting to make a roguish but good at heart gun wielder, I picked Republic. Within each of the two factions, there are 4 main classes, though each of those classes splinter off into 2 subclasses. Smuggler became my class of choice, with my subclass being the dual pistol emphasizing Gunslinger. After tinkering with the character creator for a few minutes, Mad Gunslinger was born, and I was greeted with a class-specific title crawl and plopped down into the planet of Ord Mantell. After that came my first order of business, opening up the options menu and trying to make the controls and UI as similar to World of Warcraft as possible. You may or may not be surprised at that only taking a minute or 2 of tinkering. The Old Republic didn't exactly try to break new ground with its combat, but where it did stand out was something that only took a few minutes for me to recognize.
Nothing motivates me more than credits.
Yes, of course.
It's fully voiced. All of it. Every quest you pick up, main or side, has voiced interactions between your player and the quest giver, with Mass Effect-style dialogue options to boot. The sheer amount of writing and voice acting to account for all of it must have been massive, especially when you consider that each of the game's 8 classes have their own full multi-chaptered storylines. It's this level of commitment to the game's presentation and story delivery that is without a doubt the Old Republic's differentiator in the MMO space. Considering its biggest competitor at the time of release delivered quests like this, the Old Republic's story focus was, and still is, the biggest reason to play. The overwhelming majority of my 50 or so hours with the Old Republic were spent with its questing content, and I didn't skip a single line of dialogue while doing it. BioWare's staple emphasis on questing companions play a key part in the story as well. Each class has their own unique companions that you will run into along the way and can recruit onto your quest. At any given time while adventuring, you will have a companion of your choice alongside you as a combat buddy. You can have them fill one of the 3 points in the MMO Holy Trinity of tank, heal, or DPS. Outside of combat, you can gain or lose influence with them depending on the dialogue options you choose while questing. In true BioWare fashion, you can also pursue romance among your companions, which basically means I hit every option that said flirt next to it until Reach has slept with me. Outside of how the story is presented, whether or not you'll like it is largely dependent on which class you play. There are essentially 8 different stories here. I had a good time with the Smuggler storyline, and I ended up looking up some synopses on the other stories I was interested in. The Jedi Knight story is the continuation of the Revan novel if you're interested in pursuing that line. Where the stories sometimes suffer is just the very essence of them being bolted onto an MMO. Going into this game, I was curious as to how BioWare was going to address the inherently single-player nature of player-driven stories, while also juggling a massive multiplayer world. The answer is tons and tons of instancing. Anytime anything important happens, you're going to walk through a big green wall that phases out all of the other players. Run across any big red walls and you'll have to turn back because reasons. Sometimes it feels like there's 2 or 3 too many quests within a given storyline in an effort to pad out the total hour count here. And let's not forget that if you don't shut off the chat entirely, all of your important story moments are going to be competing for screen space with people talking about the American presidential election. The Old Republic is a decade-old MMO and carries a lot of that baggage on its shoulders. Its major emphasis on story sets it apart from other MMOs, but also brings to light that maybe there's a reason most other MMOs don't share that focus. By design, it's something that you experience and interact with by yourself, which is at odds with the very nature of MMO design. To BioWare's credit, they do a great job packaging up that story and delivering it to players without it being overwhelming. Its main story content is broken down into chapters. Each of the 8 classes have 3 class-specific chapters. The expansions are each their own chapters and are clearly distinguished within your quest log, and the premium subscription allows you to skip right to the expansion content if that's where your interest lies. Overall, the Old Republic story is good with some caveats. It isn't the hidden KOTOR 3 that I think a lot of the universe wanted it to be. It sometimes feels like it's fighting itself, but at the end of the day, its extremely high bar for delivery ensures that it stays mostly entertaining throughout. A large percentage of the time spent in the Old Republic is fighting your way through its questing areas. Within a few minutes of starting, I was out and about killing some of my first level 1 quest mobs, and helping the local government quell a separatist resistance. I had alluded to the Old Republic's combat being safe earlier, but that's not strictly a bad thing. KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2 had MMO-adjacent combat in the first place, so the fighting here feels like an extension of that, but just a bit more active. It's a tab-targeting, scrolling combat text-based MMO system, which, while not created by WoW, is definitely where my familiarity with it lies. The Old Republic's combat was immediately comfortable to me, with probably its only differentiator in the fighting space being a lack of auto-attack. Instead of attacks being dished out at regular intervals with you being able to command some spells in between, you need to manually attack. In the case of my gunslinger, I had a low cooldown, low damage gunshot that basically acted as a filler auto-attack. It's a small distinction, but this method ensures that every bit of damage I dealt to my opponents corresponded to a button press on my keyboard. New abilities are unlocked at a healthy pace as you level, and you will also have some agency in picking which passives you want from a talent tree. Combat just works here. It's content with not being a major step forward compared to its contemporaries because its focuses lie in other areas, and that's just fine with me. When not speaking or fighting my way through the game's quests, I was traveling through its world. After a few hours, I was awarded with a starship, which acted as both a hub for the companions that I gathered, as well as a means to travel to all of the game's planets. The class chapters do a good job of pushing you to a variety of different planets to get your feet wet, and boy, there are a lot of them. Movie staples like Tatooine and Hoth share equal footing with extended universe favorites like Nar Shaddaa and Taris. These planets are all beautiful to behold. With the exception of some excessive pop-in, the Old Republic hasn't really shown its age. It went for a cartoony style that stood the test of time, and there are still vistas in this game that really impress. The Old Republic's planet list stands as a monument to the old extended universe. The Old Republic is the only Star Wars property still alive that has its roots in the pre-Disney era. In 2014, Disney uncanonized all of the previous Star Wars novels, games, and comics to allow them to create their sequel trilogy untethered by previous mountains of lore. Over the past year, I've been reading tons of Star Wars, both the now non-canon Legends fiction as well as the new Disney canon. I'm a huge fan of both, but the major problem I have with the new canon is its obsession with the Skywalker saga. The new novels are all content taking place within a few decades on either side of the North Star of the Star Wars fiction, A New Hope. Disney will be addressing this with their new franchise, Star Wars The High Republic, early next year, but until then, the new fiction just feels kind of small. If there's anything that the Old Republic isn't, it's small. The Old Republic has decades of source material to pull from, and it used that to its strength. The species, the planets, and the characters are all pulled from this rich tapestry of lore. Extended universe favorites like Revan get a lot of screen time, but the Old Republic also rewards you for being a fan of KOTOR and the fiction in general, with references to small characters like Trask Ulgo and Darth Bandon. The Old Republic's scope and reverence for its fiction might just be its biggest strength. The Old Republic doesn't feel like it's just a part of the old fiction, it feels like it is the old fiction. The sheer magnitude of characters in here must make for one of the largest drivers for entries on the Star Wars wiki. Just booting this game up for the first time made me feel like I was walking into a time machine, and playing a Star Wars game from an era where the brand's size, lore, and priorities were way different. There's plenty about my experience that I haven't gone into detail about, like about my unfurnished apartment in Nar Shaddaa and the hour I spent playing dress-up to make my character look exactly how I wanted, or the times I got my butt kicked in the PvP arena, or did the least damage among my party during a player dungeon. But those are all things that I think matter more to the MMO enthusiast, and the reality is, what MMO enthusiast out there hasn't already tried this game? The last bastion of people out there that should absolutely give this game a shot are the Star Wars enthusiasts. The Star Wars enthusiasts who maybe play a lot of the games, but just don't play MMOs. To those people I say, why not give it a month? The Old Republic is a Star Wars fan's Star Wars game. The gold banner of Legends denoting what belongs to the old fiction is something that's reserved for printed books, but if there's any game that could wear that banner proudly, it's this one.